Well, good Thursday afternoon to you all. I'm Meteorologist Addison Green, and we have the latest information coming in from the National Hurricane Center about our now Tropical Depression 9. It was an invest we were watching earlier on in the Caribbean over the past several days, but it has since become more organized, and they started to see that closed circulation starting to pop on up through their data as well as their satellite imagery. So we have the latest information coming on, and with this system now potentially showing that the forecast track is shifting a little bit slightly to the east, which takes Houston, for the most part, out of that forecast cone, although the eastern portions of the Houston metro area and southeast Texas are still within that forecast cone that we'll show you in just a few minutes. But Houston still needs to prepare for potential of a strong hurricane because there is equal chance from the middle of that forecast line to have the system move all the way to the east or to the west. So we're not out of the woods yet, but it's looking less and less likely that we'll be seeing a direct impact from that system. And the timing of its eventual landfall on the northern Gulf Coast is late Sunday into early Monday morning as potentially a strong Category 2 or maybe even a low-grade Category 3 major hurricane. And the next name on the list would be Ida right there, after we have now since crossed off several names on the list, including Henry. So definitely something to take in consideration that we are going through another active season. Now, Tropical Depression 9, you can see the latest information coming on in from the National Hurricane Center as of 1 p.m. Central Time, has winds sustained of 35 miles per hour, and it's moving to the northwest, I should say, at 13. We do have its location being just outside of Jamaica right there, as well as the Cayman Islands, where you can see all of that convection for the most part, like it typically is on the north and eastern sides of the system, with the south and western side showing a little more clearing going on. But as the system strengthens over time, we'll start to see all of that convection becoming all around the system, and then eventually you're going to get that big blooming potential eye wall developing, and then you get the clearing of the eye. But that's only like really intense hurricanes, Category 3 and higher. But bottom line, as we're looking at the infrared satellite imagery, is that we are starting to see more of these taller cloud tops, indicated by the black to white. That's showing those colder cloud tops. So those clouds are developing and rising up and bubbling up towards the top of the atmosphere. Hence, we're starting to see those colder colors come on in. And as we see more of that developing, we're starting to see more convection inside the system. It's very energetic and it's getting stronger over time. But right now, we still just have a tropical depression with winds of 35 miles per hour. But as we look right here at the big picture, water vapor imagery as well as 250 millibar level winds. Those are the same winds that the jet stream is at and the same level of altitude that commercial jetliners fly at, relatively about 34,000 feet. We have two pressure systems that we're keeping our eye on. We have this upper low sitting right over the Yucatan Peninsula, over Cozumel and Cancun, and upper high pressure system sitting just over Hispaniola, that's shared by the Dominican Republic and Haiti. The upper high pressure system wants to pull that tropical system up towards the north and east. Meanwhile, the upper low over here wants to pull it up towards the north and west. So right in between the two is where we're going to be seeing that potential system going to a north-northwesterly direction over time. But eventually, we're going to be seeing that low pressure starting to win that tug-of-war battle, pulling it in towards the Gulf of Mexico. So that is where we could eventually see, because of the lack of land around in the Gulf of Mexico, of course, the potential for seeing the system really strengthen and develop. And let's go ahead and track the system right here. As we're looking at the upper level wind shear, still at 250 millibars, still at that jetliner level. And we have strong wind shear going on across the central Gulf of Mexico. So if the system was to be in there right now, it would struggle to strengthen and develop over time because of this persistent wind coming out of a northeasterly direction that kind of cuts off the cloud tops and keeps the system from developing. But watch as we move forward in time, you can see that upper level wind shear starts to fade away and starts to relax. It's because we have now an upper area of high pressure starting to build up. And as you get that being the case, that allows the system to freely vent. Think of it like an exhaust pipe on your car. You have the air coming in through the system and then eventually leaving through the exhaust pipe. But if the exhaust pipe was all clogged up or had something blocking it, for instance, you would have struggled to really perform the way it should. Well, when you have a clear exhaust pipe, you can clearly vent out and continue to grow and develop. And that's why we are starting to see, as that system moves away from Cuba right there, it enters in towards that high pressure system. And now we can start to see that it starts to strengthen and develop. Category 1, Category 2, maybe even a Category 3 major hurricane before it makes its eventual landfall still somewhere between southeast Texas towards Mississippi, but allowing that upper level winds to become much more relaxed, couple that with a lack of land interaction because that kind of tugs and tears at systems, and the very warm tropical waters, that's what allows systems to strengthen, develop, and in several instances, develop rapidly. So as I was mentioning about wind shear and the exhausting of a system, you're talking about how a normal hurricane wind flow is a stacked vertical engine, breathes in through the bottom at the sea level, goes on up through the upper level portions of the atmosphere. And you can clearly get that nice convection going on the sides of it and allowing it to breathe on through the top. But once you start to get that really strong wind shear to come on in, like I was showing you earlier, it can displace that exhaust system and have the system being itself kind of like toppled over a little bit, which is not what tropical systems want. They want to be able to stack nicely vertically from top to bottom and be able to clearly vent out that heat from the surface, but they can't do it if their cloud tops are being sheared on off. Now, they don't like that. We do, because we want to see these guys not becoming big monster storms threatening populated areas or any land masses in general. But unfortunately, we do see that chances become more favorable for tropical systems every now and then. Now, as we move forward, watching the latest information from the National Hurricane Center, we have tropical storm warnings coming on in for the western side of Cuba, as well as the Cayman Islands right there. Jamaica is out of seeing any tropical alerts because it is the system is pulling away from Jamaica. But you can see by the time we get in towards later on this evening, we now have sustained winds at 40 miles per hour, so that would make it a tropical storm. And the next name on the list is Ida. And then by the time we head in towards Friday morning, it's now at 50 miles per hour. Once it goes over Cuba, it will struggle just a little bit to strengthen and develop. But watch as it goes into the open Gulf. By Saturday morning, we're talking about the system now being a hurricane with winds sustained of at least 75 miles per hour. And then right here in the heart of the Gulf of Mexico, that's where systems really do take off and strengthen and develop. And you can see right there, we do have it making its way towards Sunday morning with winds sustained at or around 110 miles per hour. That's on the cusp of being a major hurricane. If it was in one interval higher, 115 miles per hour, yes, it would be. But 110 makes it a very strong Category 2. But the difference between a strong Cat 2 and a weak Cat 3 is very minimal. We're talking just semantics at that point. As we move forward in past Sunday morning, in through Sunday afternoon, now we're starting to see that potential landfall coming around. Again, anywhere between southeast Texas over in towards Mississippi border with Alabama right there. We have an equal chance of seeing the system right here go on towards the eastern side of the cone or the western side of the cone. Depends upon how the upper level wind patterns play out, and this gets a chance to see where the system will eventually be steered. But we can definitely see that there is going to be a landfall of a tropical system, whether it's a strong hurricane or a weak hurricane or a strong tropical storm. That's a little less likely, but regardless, there will be a landfall in the northern sections of the Gulf Coast going in through the end of the weekend and towards the beginning of the work week on Monday. So if you have any plans out there this weekend of going down there towards Louisiana, maybe New Orleans or Lake Charles, definitely think about maybe canceling those plans, rescheduling them. And even if you're just traveling through on the I-10 corridor right there, going maybe towards Florida from Sunday into Monday, I may think about doing that trip a little earlier or maybe just not going all together because as we have seen time and time before, especially last year, Louisiana got hit hard and 5 systems hit Louisiana. So it can definitely be a very much problematic concern going through that area, especially if you're dealing with the aftermath of a landfalling large hurricane or even just a slow moving heavy rain making one. But there we go, out towards Tuesday morning, we still have a system that we're talking about. It's now down towards a tropical depression on the ways out towards becoming a remnant low, but nonetheless, it'll still be raining itself out over across portions of the lower Mississippi River Valley, which does include Houston, getting a chance for seeing a good amount of tropical rainfall to come on in. And Houston is looking to be less and less on the dirty side of the system, in fact, completely not on the dirty side, but still less and less being impacted in general by a tropical system coming on in. And whenever we mention the dirty side of the system, the strong side, we're talking about this section of the storm right here. The eastern side towards the front. So the front right section of the system is where you have the maximum amount of winds and the storm surge, because we're having that forward motion of the system as well as that counterclockwise spin going on in. So now we are pushing the ocean this way, the storm surge, we're pushing all those stronger winds. That's usually where the heaviest rainfall potential is on a weaker system, but in general, it's all across the front. Houston potentially will be out there towards the front left side, the cleaner side. So you'll have less of a concern for damaging winds the further away you are from the storm, and less of a storm surge. And then of course, if you get the chance for being on the back side of the system, there are still some concerns out there, but those are running less and less. But if you're caught in this side of the storm, yeah, that's where the worst conditions will be, especially if you're out by the coast, where you definitely will have to deal with that storm surge and that potential big chance for heavy rain to come on down, and you get inland flooding on the back end of it. So as we're looking right here towards the computer models, I also wanted to overlay the official track from the National Hurricane Center, or official cone, I should say. So this is where they're seeing that chance of the system being statistically as we go forward in time. Watch as we put the computer models out there, including the American model, the GFS model, on top of that forecast cone. We have a lot of the models wanting to say that system will be within that cone, and definitely more so towards the eastern side of the cone as opposed to the western side. There's only a handful of them. But also, look out there towards the Houston metro area. There's only 3 spaghetti plots, 3 computer models that say the system will go over that way. So it's less and less likely that we'll be seeing a tropical system come in towards southeast Texas, but we're not out of the woods yet. There's still a few storms out that way, a few tracks, I should say, out that way that could be an issue. But looking more and more of a concern for Baton Rouge in towards New Orleans to potentially getting impacted by a very strong tropical system, like I said before, as we go into late Sunday and into early Monday morning. And it's going to be having, on top of the relaxed wind shear up aloft, very warm sea surface temperatures. Tropical systems love very warm water. We're talking about bath water type temperatures, mid to upper 80s into the mid 90s. Thankfully, we don't get the mid 90s too often around this part of the world, but nonetheless, we'll be talking about temperatures on the surface of the Gulf of Mexico into the upper 80s to low 90s, especially right in the very shallow waters off coast areas of Louisiana. That's where we do have those temperatures in that 91, maybe even slightly higher degree range. As the system moves over those waters, starts to feed into it, starts to fuel it some more, and that's what we have seen as recently as Grace, when it made its landfall, its second landfall in central Mexico after going through the Bay of Campeche. It strengthened and developed rapidly, and we had a major hurricane within hours of making landfall. So if anybody was on the coast that didn't prepare for the only of a major hurricane and just happened to ride it out, hopefully they were able to get out of harm's way, because they got impacted and potentially with very little time to get out of town, so to speak. So that's why we always say, don't focus on the forecast track, specifically that narrow line, and don't focus on the system's name type. If it's a tropical storm or it's a hurricane, regardless, treat every tropical system with respect, because they could definitely bring around some undesirable conditions as they quickly approach the coastal areas and then quickly develop and strengthen and grow. Now the wind forecast and wave heights, because the storm surge is also a big situation to deal with right there. You can see we have those wave heights increasing to about 8 to 10 feet or so right here on the northeastern side of the system, as it's still lopsided. It hasn't really developed yet across the area. But this is out near the Cayman Islands, and there's Jamaica, there's Cuba. Watch as we go forward in time, shall we? We move on in towards 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. tomorrow morning, I should say. It's approaching the western portions of Cuba. Now we have the wave heights increasing still on that eastern side to relatively about 10 to 15 feet in height. Moving forward, once it passes over Cuba and goes into the open portions of the Gulf of Mexico, now we have wave heights on average about 15 to 25 feet, still on that right front side, but now we're starting to see those stronger swells starting to pick up on the back side as well, showing signs of a strengthening and increasingly getting larger system. Heading on in towards Sunday morning, between 8 to 9 in the morning, so to speak, and now we have a lot more high wave activity coming on in. Maybe wave heights about 20 to 30 feet, pushing towards the mouth of the Mississippi. And this is some very shallow land right there. So easily that storm surge can impact the coast and move quite a good distance inland. I don't think as much as threatening the city of New Orleans right off the bat, but you can get that northeasterly breeze to come on in, pushing the high wave activity in towards Lake Pontchartrain, in which case New Orleans sits on, and then you may have an issue on the back end side of things. As we move forward in towards Monday to Tuesday, now we have the system making landfall. It's weakening over time. The waves will slowly diminish. But as let me go ahead and try and back that up for just a second, so we can see how Houston would look if the system wants to work with me. So yeah, you can see right there we would have the waves increasing in the Houston metro area, especially along towards the Boulevard Peninsula area, Galveston Island, maybe even towards the bay as we has that system making its approach. So that's what we're going to be seeing potentially on the best case scenario, is having the rough waves, the wind, maybe some scattered rain showers here and there. That's about it. In terms of the rainfall that we could potentially see along with this system coming on, it's going to be potentially a lot. Let's go ahead and put this into motion, shall we? From Houston all the way over in towards Mobile, Alabama, we're talking about rainfall amounts between about 1 to 7+ inches, with that higher amount right here in towards the central Gulf coastal areas of Louisiana. But you can easily see if the system slows down, which there is that chance, we'll get the potential for bringing around a lot more rain over a smaller area. If it moves quickly in and out, then we'll start to see those rainfall totals starting to disperse and get out of the way. Now, as we make our way in towards the heart of the season, it's coming up in just a few weeks. That's right there. That peak is mid-September, and then we'll eventually start to see conditions improve as you head on in towards October and then towards November. If you have any questions, thoughts, or concerns, feel free to reach out on social media. Here's all my handle information, and we'll be having the latest information coming on in on the TV side of things. If you happen to be in the Houston metro area, or go ahead and find us on the web at KHOU.com. And you can also make sure to find all of us meteorologists here at KHOU to give you the latest information as we continue to dive into the tropics.